Hello guys. Previously we have discussed about the concrete buckets, and today I would like to discuss about the mobile elevated working platforms, or MEWP. So let's begin. Minimum requirements. More one rules, legal or contractual requirements always take precedence. Higher standards and or proprietary solutions shall be adopted wherever practicable. General requirements. All operators of MEWP must have attended a training course, IPAF or similar, and often 1 to 2 days in durations, and provide substantiating certification, documentations, familiarization training which suppliers provide is not under any circumstances to be considered as adequate training on its own. So we need only the training from the third party, accredited accredited by the government, for the MEWP, like for example the IPAF or other training organizations. Training of the suppliers is not adequately considered because uh, it might be they are not allowed to conduct trainings to become or issue certifications to be the to become the workers to be a competent persons in operating the MEWP. MEWP operators should be physically fit with regards to eyesight, hearing, and should have a good head for heights. Documentations for MEWP should include 6 monthly thorough examinations, safety documents, and manual daily checklists. So we need to have this thorough examination every 6 months because MEWP is carrying people. So the minimum requirements, legal requirements, must have at least every 6 months. It should be thoroughly examined and certificated by the third party's company. Only MEWP with additional safety devices fitted such as strip bars, zone sensors, or protective cages will be permitted to work on site. As you can see in the pictures for articulated boom and telescopic boom and scissor lifts. Which type is the best fit for your job? So you need to check what type of MEWP is suitable for your job in order to prevent incident in the workplace. MEWP must be sited on the firm level, ground and conditions such as underground services, temporary holes covers, uncompacted soil, manhole covers, weather should be taken into considerations. So when we are setting up the MEWP, it should be on the level ground, and all such underground services, temporary temporary hole covers, uncompacted soils, and many others should be considered when we are setting up the MEWP. MEWP should only be moved when the working platform is in the lowered position. Don't move any MEWP if the working platform is still elevated. So we need to lower it before we move to some other place because it will give vibration and jerking while it's moving. It will trigger to the collapse, tip over of the MEWP due to the unbalanced forces. When using MEWP fitted with the outriggers, always follow the manufacturer's recommendations and always consider the ground conditions. And the MEWPs are fitted with the emergency auxiliary lowering controls and an emergency stop Before using the MEWP, the operator and other responsible person must know how to use the emergency controls and demonstrate this as competent. And of course, they should have a training from the IPAP and or other similar organization, competent organization, to issue certification to them as competent person for the operation of the MEWPs. Step ladders, hop ups, etc. should never be used inside MEWP to gain extra height to access the works. So if you that's why in the beginning of this training we discussed that we need to choose proper MEWP suitable for your job, so that you don't need to place any step ladder inside of the platform of the MEWP or the basket to gain extra height. So because this is unacceptable and it's unsafe acts. The maximum wind speed in which the machine may be used will be as per manufacturer's guidelines. Please see the figure 2. You can see uh, there are some windsock here that you can see what is the wind speed. So if you don't have a wind speed or anemometer, you need to look for your windsock location to check uh, approximately what is the wind speed for that location. Okay, so you can see here on this first windsock configuration, you have 5.5 kilometer per hour, and the second one is if the second line up to this white color, shaded color, is 11 kilometer per hour, so and so and so. At the beginning of each working shift, routine checks as appropriate for the type of MEWP should be carried out before starting works. This comprises of observation and functional checks. These checks are intended to reveal only obvious defects. Checklists should be completed and any defects reported to the supervisor. So it is always a good standard practice that to have a checklist, so that you will not forget something when you are doing inspection. You will cover everything that need to be checked in the MEWP. Full body harness should be worn and used by all persons working inside the MEWP, and this should be with full restraint lanyard only. This should be clipped onto the recognized anchorage point with the machines. In the figure 4, you can see the full body harness. Periodic drills should be undertaken in the rescue of operations of a persons inside of MEWPs to ensure all involved are familiar with the procedures and the safety controls of the machines. See the figure 5, as you can see how the MEWP working platforms will be lowered. Always barricade around MEWP and erect signage to prevent unauthorized access. In high-risk or congested area, always use a competent spotter or banksman to assist the operations. So always barricade around MEWP and erect signage. So this is to prevent unauthorized entry on the affected areas, to make sure that if something happen, anybody will not get hurt, and they cannot accidentally touch any parts of the MEWP, including the emergency stop button or any switch of MEWP. Especially in the high risk congested areas, you need to always use a competent spotter, so or banksman. This one to assist, this man is to assist the operator to make sure that the MEWP will not collide during movement to any permanent structure. Trapping hazards, what factors increase the risk? Poor selections of the machines. So you can see on the pictures here, someone is trapped on the beam. Uh, he doesn't know. He doesn't know that his body is outside of the basket, and he made a mistake to to move the basket up rather than it moving lowering it. So this happen can contribute a fatality on the operators or the users of the man basket or MEWP. So why these strapping hazards factors increase is because of the poor selections of the MEWP, poor route planning, and uneven grounds. So we need to make sure that our route during transport of MEWP from one place to another place is inspected, and make sure it's clear from obstruction and free for the movement of our MEWP, including the uneven grounds. Okay, it should be level ground, because if you use or transport the MEWP on the uneven ground, it will tilt down, and it will cause the unbalance and sudden jerking. Then it will trigger to the incident. Using MEWP without additional safety devices fitted. Okay, so all safety devices should be fitted when you are using the MEWP. Like for example, the edge protection of the basket, the anchor points for the safety harness, the emergency stop buttons, the emergency button, lowering button device. So all of these should be checked before you start to use the MEWP. Poor visibility at height. So we make sure that the operator are having a clear and good visibility uh, from the height, so he can see the ground level when the MEWP is being transported to another place. Distractions when operating MEWP. So when someone is operating MEWP and they are doing the job, never distract them, because their concentration might be lost, and instead of they want to lower the basket of MEWP, maybe they will bring it up, and it will trigger to the accident of trapping on the MEWP. Objects placed on the control panel or overriding MEWP controls. So this is another source of accident that may increase the risk for the personnel inside of the MEWP. There are some materials that they place to the control panel, so they cannot operate the MEWP properly, or they are overriding the MEWP controls. So, or another one is using faulty or poorly maintained MEWP. So that's why it's very important that every day we need to conduct inspections, pre-inspection checklist, pre-use checklist, so we can check the essentials parts of the MEWP before we allow our workers to start the job. Select MEWP carefully. It is important to ensure that MEWP selected is suitable for the specific maneuver to be carried out if working close to an overhead obstructions. So we need to check our MEWP if there are so many overhead obstructions. in the work area. Particular attention should be given to the choice of reach of machine. Ideally, it is better not to operate close to the limit of the machine envelope. So when you are checking the location, make sure that there is enough space for your machine, not just the same size of your machine. The space location is the same size of your machine, so it will uh, uh, it will trigger to an incident. It will collide. It will get trigger to the uh, uh, collision of the MEWP to the permanent structure. Clearance ensure that MEWP and platform are not too large for the spaces in which the machine must be operated. So make sure that there is a good clearance for the work. Ensure familiarization is specific. It is essential that appropriately trained operators receive a familiarization that is specific to the MEWP they plan to use, conducted in a low-risk area away from overhead structures. So make sure that the person is trained, as I repeated on the previous slides. Make sure that the personnel who are using the MEWP is competent to operate. They have the license to operate of this MEWP or training to operate, and they have experience to operate MEWP. In addition to familiarity with the normal operating controls of the MEWP, the minimum standards for each operator is to fully understand emergency descent controls, how to use the emergency lowering controls both under power and auxiliary modes, including how to control work once the load cells has been activated. Okay, so it is very important to have familiarity with the emergency descent controls. Deadman controls or a foot pedals. What happens if you remove your foot from the foot pedal and reinsert it in a simulated slump over the control situation? So make sure that he is familiar about the deadman control or the foot pedals of the MEWP so that he can control the machine when it's moving. Operating past the 90 degrees positions, how do the controls work when a boom type MEWP is slewed past the 90-degree position? So make sure that when the machine is operating on the 90-degree position, it should be done slowly so that it will we can avoid the sudden jerking that will contribute to the collapse of your MEWP due to the unbalanced movement. Personnel on the ground who are competent to lower the MEWP in an emergency should undergo familiarization as well with the emergency and ground controls and practice emergency lowering procedures at regular intervals in accordance with the emergency rescue plans. So make sure that the standby person on the ground, he know also how to conduct the emergency lowering of the MEWP. Just in case something happen with the operator on the basket on above, so he can also do the operation. He can also lower the MEWP so that they can save those personnel who got accident on the top. So this should be done in regular intervals or conduct a drill. Like for example, you conduct emergency lowering drill or rescue drill from the MEWP, and make sure that you recorded all the drills that had been conducted. Example, some personnel he got some heart attack inside of the MEWP. So uh, how we can bring him down if there's nobody on the ground that know how to use the MEWP emergency lowering uh, button or switch. Ensure good ground conditions. So as you can see on the sketch on the right on the right, you can see if you are having not good condition or on the ground, your MEWP might be collapsed or tilted on a trip over to the ground because of the unbalanced jerking and unbalanced movement. Run conditions should be suitable for the safe operation of the machine. The ground should, where possible, be relatively level and compacted with no obstruction in the operating zone. All trenches, column bases, and pits shall be identified. If the ground conditions are poor, do not operate the MEWP. Ensure good visibility at height. When working inside the building at the times of the low light, example in winter months or in the rainy season, in poor weather, or in the night, adequate lighting should be provided or otherwise your work will be suspended. Proper cable management should be implemented at all times because when you are moving the MEWP, maybe one part of its body will hit the unmanaged cable, and it will when the cable was damaged, it will especially if the cable is active cable, then the personnel inside of the MEWP will get electrocuted from this cable. Minimize distractions. The distractions in the platform basket, such as mobile phones and training cables, should be strongly discouraged. So make sure that the mobile phones is in the silent mode, and the training cables inside of the basket is properly managed. Loose materials on the MEP handrails or in the basket of MEWP should be prohibited. Should carried in approved materials handling attachments. Make sure that you have a materials basket or handling attachment basket that you can bring all your tools and material inside of it to prevent any loose material inside of the basket. Distraction on the ground. People or object near MEWP base should be removed before operating an exclusion zone complied with it. Okay, so we need to remove all the distractions on the ground. Even the person is also distractions. So provide exclusion zones. Make sure that inside of that exclusion zones there is no distraction. Do not obstruct MEWP's controls. Basket controls, basket platform, hand and foot controls not be obstructed all the time. Tools and materials which could obstruct the control should not be placed on the MEW control panel but stored in approved containers and or using approved materials handling attachment. Once in position, consider isolating the power until you need to reposition to reduce the risk of accidental operation. Emergency lowering control. Those controls should be required to effect emergency rescue and should not be obstructed by object on the ground. For example, operating MEWP close to the wall with emergency control facing the wall. So how we can access the emergency lower controls if it is obstructed by the wall or any materials around it, then we cannot access it in case of emergency. Okay, so make sure that emergency lowering control is free from any obstruction. The same thing in the fire extinguishers. Make sure that fire extinguishers is always accessible all the time. Slow down, don't crouch over the controls and look. Slow drive, this is for the operator. Slow drive speeds should be used, particularly when reversing. Make sure that when you are reversing, there is a uh, reversing alarm attached to the MEWP so that you can give alert to any other people around you. Crouching over the controls significantly reduces the operator's margin of safety. Okay. Scan the area for obstructions both before and during MEWP operations. So make sure that you scan first the area so the before and also during the use of MEWP so that you can avoid such obstruction. Do not lean over the guardrails while operating MEWP. So if you are leaning on the guardrails, you are putting your body on the risk of trapping from any fixed object or structural parts of the building when you are using MEWP. So avoid that one. Make sure you are always only inside of the basket, inside of the guardrails of MEWP. Do not override the MEWP controls or use faulty MEWPs. Check the MEWP has a valid thorough examination certificate from the third party approved by the authorized government agency. Always perform daily checks. Report all faults. If you are the operators and you found any faults on your MEWP, report this to you immediately to your supervisor or to your engineer or to your safety officer on the site so that and stop using the MEWP immediately. When you are stopping using immediately MEWP, you need to shut down the power, bring down the basket, park it safely, and shut down the power and remove the key. Any faults must be rectified before using MEWP. Do not override the controls. Okay guys, we have completed the MEWP. Next video tutorial we will conduct or we will discuss the traffic operations and controls in the construction, roads and highway constructions. See you next time. Thank you.